Alright, back again. So in this video we're going to be looking at the four different types of unemployment. Some textbooks just give us three. We'll cover all four. And they just give us three because a lot of times they take out this idea of seasonal unemployment. So all we're going to do with this video is go over the four different types of unemployment and then look at these couple of vocabulary words, and then we'll be done. So hopefully not too long. All right. So when we look at unemployment, we want to be able to figure out, because when you look at the people who are unemployed, they're unemployed for different reasons. Okay. Some people may have lost their job because technology took it over. Other people may have lost their job because they moved cities and they just wanted, they're in the process of looking for another job. Somebody else may have lost their job because they got laid off because the economy was bad. And so we need to look at how those numbers break out. So when we have 7.9% unemployment, which we have currently, how are those people unemployed? What are the different types of unemployment that those people are experiencing? So let's go over these four. All right, and this is all we're going to do pretty much for this video. So when we look at the types of unemployment, the first one we'll look at is this thing called frictional unemployment. All right, and so frictional unemployment. So I'll just write all these down here. So frictional unemployment. These are people who are unemployed that are in short, we'll just say they're in between jobs. All right. So this would be the person who is, a student that graduates and they start to look for work. When they start to look for work, they are in the process of seeking work, so they are considered unemployed. And so this would be somebody who's frictionally unemployed. So anybody who's moved cities, things like that. All right, they're in between jobs. Now the big problem with frictional unemployment is that there is a lack of information on the part of the potential employer and the individual themselves. All right, and so individual. So think about this. If let's say that you are a student and you're 17 years old and you say, I want to go look for a job, need a part-time job. And so you start to look and you go to all these different stores and you put in applications. And the problem is that somewhere out there, within whatever city you're looking at, there is an employer out there that would like to hire you. Okay, more than likely. Now, there's also a job out there that you would like to have. All right, and so the problem is that there's this lack of information between the potential employer and the individual. We want to be able to figure how can we identify and match those two people together. Okay, the person looking for a job and the person who is the employer for a job. Okay, and so really at the heart of frictional unemployment is this lack of information between these two participants. All right, and so when you go out and look for a job, if you had better information, you would know the exact company to go to and then ask them for a job, and you would know that you're the person they're looking for and that they would be happy to have you. And so information is the problem. And so the way that you deal with frictional unemployment is things like technology. Okay, if you've ever gone to monster.com, all right, monster.com is a job website. And so if you're a potential employer, if you're an employer and you're looking for people to come and work for you, you can post a job on monster.com. And if you are looking for work, you can go to monster.com. It's kind of like an online classifieds, but it's national, probably even international, I would assume. And so anyway, let's say that you are living in Georgia and you wanted to find a job in Washington State. You could go to monster.com and say, let's say I'm an electrical engineer and I want to live in Seattle, and so what are the jobs there? And so the more information that we have available, the less frictional unemployment is. All right, and so that would be the first type of unemployment. So I'm just going to erase the bottom part here. So that's frictional. All right. Now the second type Second type is the worst, okay? I mean, these are all bad. It's bad to be unemployed, but the second type is really the worst. This is structural unemployment. And so structural unemployment is when, so let me just write the definition. So structural, when an individual's skill set, individual skill set is no longer needed. Now, I don't think that should be plural. Individual skill sets, one skill, I don't know. Anyway, economics teacher, not English, so an English teacher will correct me. So structural unemployment is when an individual's skill set is no longer needed. And so this can happen for a couple of different reasons. One could be technology. Okay, if you ever go to a manufacturing facility that's one of the newer, well, any of them today, you're going to see a lot of automation, a lot of robots, things like that. And so when those robots come in and take over, then technology will take your job. All right, and so if you don't have any other skills, let's say that your skill was to weld something together, and now they have a machine that will do that. Okay, the machine doesn't call in sick; it does it the exact same way every time. You know, the whole 9 yards. And so technology can cause people to become structurally unemployed. All right, and so the problem is that with structural unemployment is that the individual has got to find a new set of skills, got to develop a new set of skills through some kind of type of education or job training program, something. But so technology might take your job. Maybe the job may be outsourced. All right, and so how many clothing or shoe manufacturers are currently in the United States? I don't know of any. They've all generally gone to Southeast Asia, into China primarily. And so when you look at the people who, so if you were making shoes in North Carolina, or if you were making shirts in North Carolina in the textile industry, your job is no longer here because somebody in another country can do it for maybe 1/8 of the cost of you. And so if that was your job and you knew how to make shoes and that job goes away, you need to find a new skill set. Again, it all gets back to the skill set. Now, the last cause of structural unemployment would be a lack of demand for the product. Let's say the product that you make is obsolete, and so if your job was to make typewriters, all right, nobody buys typewriters pretty much anymore. All right, and so if that was your skill was to make a typewriter, then you're out of luck. You need a new skill set again. All right, if you were a horse carriage maker, all right, when the automobile got invented and became pretty dominant, the primary mode of transportation, all these folks lost their job, okay, because there was no demand for horse carriages anymore. The idea of creative destruction, which we've talked about before, creative destruction causes structural unemployment. All right, so all the people whose jobs have been uh, lost because of a lack of demand, because of this creative destruction process, they're structurally unemployed. So again, just to reiterate, you've got to create a new skill set because that's the fundamental problem. And again, that could either be through education or job training, something like that. And governments often have programs. If you become structurally unemployed, they'll have either subsidized loans for more school, or I mean they have a host of programs to try to get people with these new skill sets. All right. Now the third type of unemployment, erase all this, is cyclical unemployment. So cyclical unemployment, you are unemployed because of a bad spot in the business cycle. All right, and so by the business cycle, we just mean the economy goes up and the economy comes down. And so if you look at 2008, this is when the Great Recession hit. All right, people stopped buying stuff. Great Recession. People stopped buying a bunch of stuff, and so cyclical is also called demand deficient unemployment. And so that just means that, look, people are losing their job, and people aren't buying stuff, and because people aren't buying stuff, companies have to lay people off. And when they lay them off, that would be considered cyclically unemployed. So the word to go along with cyclical unemployment would be people that get laid off. All right, and so you can think that some jobs are more prone to becoming cyclically unemployed than others. Let's say that you have a restaurant, let's say restaurant at the beach. All right, what if uh, what if we have this big recession? Are as many people going on vacation? And so if nobody's going on vacation, then the waiters and the wait staff and the kitchen staff, they're not going to need as many people at the beach in July because people aren't taking as many vacations. And so people who do a lot of service industry stuff, they become more susceptible. Also, if you look at the unemployment numbers from the Great Recession, you find that a lot of construction workers became laid off because people stopped investing, stopped building. The housing market stopped. We had a flood of, and so those people would be considered cyclically unemployed because of a downturn in the business cycle. They get laid off. All right, so this is layoffs. All right, now these are the people who can collect unemployment checks. All right, well, structurally could as well. Generally speaking, unemployment benefits are geared primarily to people who are cyclically unemployed. And so over the last several years, the U.S. federal government has paid out a lot in unemployment benefits, primarily to these folks who've been cyclically unemployed. All right, so that's that. And the last one, we're almost done. This is going to be a short one. Now, the last one, a lot of times, is not even counted in the unemployment numbers because unemployment rate, you'll see it if you look at the official numbers, the unemployment rate, and then they'll say seasonally adjusted. So seasonally adjusted, and that means, if you're a construction worker in Alaska, all right, I'm not sure exactly which month, but let's say November hits. You're not doing a lot of construction in Alaska in the winter, and so if you're a construction worker and you're in Alaska, they know you're going to be unemployed. Okay, and so it's not fair to put you into this unemployment status if you want to get a reflection of how the economy is doing, because we know that you're going to be unemployed. All right, farmers, people who work in the fields, they would be unemployed once October hit, November and December, and so the seasonal unemployment isn't used as often. These are the three big ones that we want to look at. All right, but do know what this one is. All right, now the last little bit, and then we will be done, is this up here. The NRU stands for the natural rate of unemployment. All right, so the question is, 0% unemployment, is that a good goal? Is that possible? And so we need to look up here at these different types of unemployment. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say we'll always have some level of unemployment. All right, and that is because will people always be frictionally unemployed? So if you think about what frictional unemployment is, that's students that are coming out on the labor force after graduating. That's either mothers or fathers that stayed home with the child and they're coming back into the labor force. I mean, it could be a whole host of different reasons that people are coming back onto the labor force, or they're in between jobs, any of that. This is always going to be there. Okay, this will always exist. Remember, there's a lack of information between the potential employee and the potential employer, and so there will always be some level of frictional unemployment. All right, and so when we talk about the natural rate of unemployment, this is part of it. All right, now the other one, which of these three do you think will always be there in some sense? All right, hopefully you looked at structural and said, you know what, technology is going to keep going, creative destruction is going to keep happening. There will always be people that can do similar jobs overseas, and they might can do it for cheaper, and so we're always going to have some level of structural unemployment. All right. Uh, think about the grocery stores that have self-checkout lines. You know, those self-checkout lines, that's probably replaced a few clerks, checkout clerks, and so those people become structurally unemployed. And so, you know, we want technology, but it does have a downside. So when we look at this friction, we're always going to have frictional, we're always going to have structural. All right. We can do things to try and minimize them. You know, more information here, uh, more education here. You know, we can try and minimize these things, but we're always generally going to have some level of it. And so when you add these two together, you get, for the U.S. at least, somewhere around 5%. That number may be going up towards 6%, but it's somewhere between 5 and 6%, the natural rate. So we'll just stick with 5 for now. Meaning, right now, the current unemployment rate is 7.9%. And so you look at that, and that's a lot of people, okay? But we know that generally we're going to make the assumption that our level of the natural rate of unemployment, frictional and structural added together, is 5%. So that leaves 2.9% that are unemployed. And so out of the 7.9, 5% are the natural rate, frictional and structural. And so the question is, this 2.9%, what are they? How are they unemployed? And that would be people who are cyclically unemployed. All right, we are in a slow economy right now, and so we can look at it and say 2.9% of our unemployed numbers, generally speaking, would be considered cyclically unemployed. All right, so that's the four of them. So when we talk about the natural rate of unemployment, the natural rate of unemployment in the U.S. is 5%. The natural rate comes from the idea that frictional and structural will always exist. All right, and so when you hear people talk about full employment, remember that's one of those macroeconomic goals. The three goals were price stability, economic growth, and full employment. When you hear a politician or an economist talk about full employment, they don't mean 0%. All right, they mean generally a 5% unemployment rate. All right, so full employment is really 95% employment. All right, just to refresh, frictional is in between jobs. Structural is you don't have any more skills. Cyclical, bad economy, you get laid off. And then seasonal is we knew it was coming. All right. Then natural rate of unemployment is frictional plus structural. We'll always have those to some degree. And then that creates full employment. So full employment's at 95% of the labor force. All right. So that's all. Let me check my time. All right, that was a little long. Sorry. Anyway, until next time.